The first basic and straightforward question is, why Adani? Why not the Kenyan government? Bwana CS, in your documents that you've submitted, you've indicated that JKIA is worth 1.1 trillion shillings. And as it appears, even based on your submissions, we are willing to put an investment which is worth 1.1 trillion shillings to risk for 230 billion Kenya shillings. In your submission, Bwana CS, someone would conclude that the deal is done because you've indicated clearly that there is a team currently in India carrying out due diligence. In your submissions, you've also indicated very clearly that you're negotiating for a CEO to be a Kenyan. But you contradict yourself in your submissions when you are asked to provide a profile and the shareholders of Adani, and you say that we've only carried out a desktop due diligence. Who then would you be negotiating with if, for once, you have sent a team to India, but in your response you say you do not provide this committee with information on who the shareholders are? I would expect that for such a magnanimous and a magnitude, project, even before coming here, you would have carried out severe due diligence, extensive due diligence, to be able to send a team to India. One of the things that also baffles me is that based on the proposal submitted by Adani, it appears that they had insider information. Because the law says that, yes, which I think this is also one of our biggest handicap, it says that a private investor there can be able to submit a proposal. But when you look at the documents that you've submitted, and I've perused them within the 10 minutes that we had, the information submitted by Adani really leaves a lot to be desired on the ethical or ethics of our people, because it shows detailed photographs of the airport. It talks about the challenges of our airport. One which was very, very concerning to me, if I can remember it, it demonstrates photography, satellite images. It talks about the runway, the capacity of the runway. If indeed this was not an insider dealing, which is brought about or orchestrated by a cabal in this country, how would Adani, a conglomerate based in India, get specific details on how or what ails our infrastructure? That is issue number one, Bwana CS. Number two, because I want to exhaust a series of my questions before we allow anyone else to answer. And Mr. Chairman, I would hope that my questions will be answered. I've noted that the head of terms contract has been submitted by Adani. They are the ones, I think they are the ones who have drafted it. Yes. Honestly, Bwana CS, we have a big asset here. If Adani was really the company that it is, would we allow them to submit and say that part of the model of financing this deal will be, one, debt? They will go out there and borrow money to be able to come and build this infrastructure. Number two, they will also use equity that exists. Our equity. Our own equity, our own sweat and blood for over centuries. Number three, internal accruals. In fact, internal accruals is really the bare minimum. Debt capital market structure. So essentially, Adani does not have this money. Adani, in my conclusion, is a cabal which is led by some people who are not named in this country, because you could not even give us a shareholding, and a group of people who are out there. And if you just take a few minutes, Bwana CS, because due diligence is very important, and ask internet who is Adani, the first thing that will come out is you'll be told Adani is a corrupt, fraudulent multinational corporation that has faced serious fraud allegations, including even environmental degradation in how their practices. So why on earth would we subject Kenyans to such mediocrity when it comes to the issue of investments in our property? Why did you not, if it is indeed, and I think I've opined this before, I know Kenya needs a second airport. Yes, we do. But for a PPP, why not give them land 50 kilometers away? They're already asking you to give them 30 lands to develop their commercial properties and everything. Why don't you give them free land 30 kilometers away? Tell them you have the 260 billion, you demonstrate by building afresh here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll stop there. And I hope that you can answer before any other senator asks questions.
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you. I think we are going to go that way, whereby you exhaust your questions and we give you not so many minutes, about 3 or 4. You ask your questions, then the CS will answer those questions. Bwana CS.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Ledama, through the Chair, why Adani? Like we did indicate, with PPP Act, it basically seeks to help economy on mega projects where the government may not be able to develop. Like, because Senator Chute is sitting here, if we were to take the grid to the northern part of Kenya today, and because the government don't have money to build the network, in the next 1 to 3 years. What we could do is to interest private capital through PPP Act, through PPP investment, to build a network on a return on equity, reasonable return on equity, and therefore be able to open that northern part of Kenya. Alternatively, we wait for 10, 15, 20 years to open that part of the country. So it's a way of procuring private investors, interesting private investors